Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, Will Smith continues to crush baseballs. Mookie Betts is looking good all over the field, although he did have a little mishap. And Julio Urias continues his dominant waves. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you never want to miss a day, because you know we're not going to, you can just subscribe in each of those places and you won't have to worry about anything. If this is your first time listening, watching, I'm Vince Samperio. I'm usually joined by co-host Jeff Snider, but Jeff had duties and I'm on tap today to go solo. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent time and currently cover the team. Been all over Dodger Stadium, been to spring training, been all over the place. And we're not quite insiders, but we're bringing you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. So Dodgers last night won mini sweep of the Rockies. They won 5-2. It was 5-0 going into the top of the ninth. Phil Bickford had some issues getting outs. Evan Phillips had to come in. He ended up getting a save out of it. So not ideal on the Bickford train, but as we kind of know, Bickford is the last reliever at the moment, and sometimes you just don't have it. I guess it was another night, not a great night for umpires in general. That last inning, I don't remember if Bickford got squeezed or not, but just in general, another bad night for umpires. But yeah, a lot of positives coming out of last night. We'll go in order of Julio Urias and then Will Smith, and then finish up with Mookie Betts. Actually, let's start with Mookie Betts because Mookie Betts has a little bit of an update that comes with him. So Mookie Betts played second base last night, and well, first of all, let's just talk about Mookie Betts in general. So Mookie Betts before the game accepted his award, his Silver Slugger Award, accepted his Gold Glove Award, I believe, and so the fact that the Dodgers, or the fact that Mookie Betts is a Gold Glove outfielder in right field, can just come in at second base and look very, normal, and if not normal, good at second base. Turning double plays, starting double plays, making the routine plays. He's a very, very good second baseman, and obviously, he's an all-around athlete. We've seen him do well in multiple sports, or at least bowling. We've seen him on the football field. We've seen him in basketball. He's a natural athlete, but even then, it's still not the easiest thing to transition all over the field in baseball. Obviously, we've seen a lot of guys do it, and he came up as an infielder, so it's not like surprising. But when you see just how good he is in the outfield, you forget that he came up as an infielder. And then when he plays infield, you're like, oh, yeah, Mookie Betts can play infield. So in that aspect, pretty good. Real quick, before we get into that, why we might see Mookie Betts more at second base, potentially. Miguel Vargas was out of the lineup. His hand was still a little bit sore. Dodgers have a day off today. So I would expect he's back in the lineup unless his hand, his issue was throwing the ball more so than hitting. So we'll see what happens there. And then Miguel Rojas tweaked his hammy a little bit on Sunday, so he's been out of the lineup Monday and Tuesday. And if he continues to miss them, we may see some movement. But Dave Roberts said that they shouldn't need IL stints, that if it was something like a playoffs or a more important game late in the season, that they both would be able to play. But as we know, what goes with the Dodgers is that sometimes these injuries that aren't a big deal end up being IL stints. But either way, if Vargas continues to miss time, Robert said Mookie would become the second baseman, and then they would obviously deal with their outfielders that they have in Outman, Thompson, Hayward, and all those guys. But yeah, there was a little scare with Mookie late in the game, a little blooper into short right field. He went out to get it. Jason Hayward was running in to get it. Mookie ended up catching it, but Hayward ended up going, kind of getting down out, trying to get out of the way, and Mookie went over the top of him. His ankle, or he stayed on the ground for a little bit, and at first you weren't sure if he was hurt or if he was just relieved that he caught the ball and wasn't hurt. He got up and he was a little ginger coming back to the dugout because it was the last out of the inning. And then he came up to bat and he hit a double, but he didn't look that great running to second. It looked like he was not, obviously not going max effort, but also once he got to second base, it looked like he put a little bit of, or wasn't trying to put too much pressure on that ankle. But then a couple batters later, Will Smith hit a double, but Mookie, it was close enough to where, Mookie couldn't just start running from off the bat. He had to wait for the ball to actually land. So he was pretty much at second base once the ball dropped. And Mookie Betts put on the boosters, and he ended up scoring and looked fine. So one of those where when he hit the double, it was a gapper. So it was a double as soon as he hit it off the bat. So he was not running full speed. And, when you're not running full speed, you do feel an ankle or something like that a little bit more than if you have to run full speed with adrenaline. So that was probably it. After the game, they said that it was like a sprained ankle. Like if you're playing basketball, that Mookie will be fine. So hopefully that is the case. Mookie's fine. But Mookie Betts, not only defensively is he getting it done right now, offensively, he has a 5-game hitting streak. He's hitting 300 so far in the year, 990 OPS, 5 walks compared to 6 strikeouts, couple doubles, a homer. So a good start for him. He's setting the table at the top of the order. And he has a different celebration. He yesterday when he hit the double, he didn't do the freight train. And and I noticed it earlier when Will Smith hit his home run. I don't know. I have to watch the broadcast angle because from where I was at the game, I couldn't exactly tell what it was, but it looks like something like he's opening up or like, I don't know, swimming or opening some, or like, something in front of him and he's opening it up so he can see. I don't know, but I like it. I like it. So yeah, that's but I mean, like Mookie in general, he got caught the other night after one of the big hits. He's going crazy in the dugout and he's seemingly having fun and enjoying it. And it's been fun to watch, him kind of come out of his shell since he got to the Dodgers. When he was with the Red Sox, I knew he was a good player, but unless the Dodgers were playing the Red Sox, I didn't really know too much about him, or he didn't really let a lot of him be shown like that. We might have known the bowling stuff before, I think, but other than that, yeah. So now that he's he's fun in the dugout and he's coming up with this celebrations, and we've seen him have events or be at events or be a lot more open with the media and a lot more open in general. I don't know, it's been fun to watch and it's been fun to see, and we still got him for a lot more years, so that's a great thing, that Mookie Betts is all in like this, and it's been fun to watch, and obviously he's productive on the field, so it's a combination of a lot of things of why we love Mookie Betts. So shout out Mookie Betts. We're going to talk about Julio Urias next. But first, we're going to talk about FanDuel because today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And what are we going to say about FanDuel? We're going to say that the NBA playoffs are almost here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. There's a big game in Los Angeles tonight, and it's Clippers Lakers, and they have the same record, and they're fighting for playoff spots, and they're fighting to not have to play in the playing game. Honestly, I don't have any bets for you. The Lakers played last night in Utah on how to go to overtime. So even though I'm a Laker fan, I might lean toward taking the Clippers, but the Clippers also aren't full strength, and the Lakers have looked good for a while. Clippers have looked okay. Yeah, I don't have a bet for you, but if there was a game to bet on, or at least players to bet on, I would bet on for sure Anthony Davis tonight to get some points. Take the over on points, take the over on rebounds. LeBron James is starting to look like himself, but he might be a little bit on a restriction or might not play. If Davis and LeBron don't play, for sure take the Clippers money line. But if they do, I'll take the over on some of their stuff. So either way, FanDuel can let you combine your bets like that for a chance at a bigger payout. Same game parlay. You bet on the same guys. You can bet on multiple guys in one game. You can bet on multiple, props in one game. So go check it out and go get your no sweat first bet right now, up to $1,000 in bonus bets. When you go to fanduel.com/locked on, that's fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we are back. And like I mentioned, we're going to talk about Julio Urías. Julio went 6 innings last night, didn't allow any runs, and looked good again. He did have one inning where he had bases loaded, nobody out. He got a strikeout and a double play to get out of it. And he continues to be efficient. His 6 innings, I believe, were under 90 pitches, and he's continuing to look good. And a strong start so far to the season. Last game, he struggled a little bit early on, but then got it going and ended up going the 6 innings. So it's one of those where, it's just one of those things where it's like, in terms of having to get paid or him getting paid, you know, i- is he a #1 starter? And yes, is he a #1 starter for the Dodgers? Yes. Can he be a #1 starter for, a legitimate World Series contender? Well, he's been the #1 for the Dodgers and they're a World Series contender. And it's just a matter of, how you feel about it. He doesn't throw as hard anymore. And usually when you think of a #1 pitcher on like a World Series team, or for whatever reason, you think of some guy that throws hard and is also good. Julio, obviously, 93, 94 isn't slow, but it's not as hard as some of these other guys throw. But either way, I don't remember if we talked about this after his last start. I think we maybe did, but Julio reconnected with the former pitch of his, and he's been throwing it more lately, and it's a cutter. And he abandoned the cutter after, I believe, 2018. He started throwing that slurve more often. That's when he started having a success. So obviously, it was a good move on his part. But he's throwing the cutter again. He threw it 11 times last night. He talked about it after the game. He said, I spent this offseason working on it. I didn't throw it in the World Baseball Classic. I wanted to save it for the regular season, and I feel good with it. I feel confident throwing it in any count, and now we just need to keep improving it. Yeah, so, that's the sign of a good pitcher, or at least longevity in the game of baseball, is being able to make adjustments. And obviously, it's a little bit easier for Julio since he's already thrown this pitch before in his life. It's not a completely new pitch. But the fact that he added it to his arsenal, the fact that he kept it out for the World Baseball Classic, um, I would have been interested. Let's just say, had he pitched in the like championship game, if things would have worked out to where he pitched in the championship game, or at least, or even, well, I guess they did play a semifinal, like would he have brought it out? But yeah, so Julio's got a cutter now. He's looking good. He's still, not overly dominant in sense of strikeouts, but Julio hasn't been that guy, for a while now. He can get strikeouts when needed, as we saw when he struck out Chris Bryant when he had bases loaded, nobody out. But he's definitely, pitching to contact, and it served him well because we've talked about Julio and his efficiency, and a lot of the conversations we had about Julio last year were, did the Dodgers take him out too early? Should they let him keep going? And some of the conversation about his upcoming free agency is that he's going to leave because the Dodgers don't give him that, full leash or whatever the case, blah, blah, blah. And, I feel like, yeah, there's situations where I would have liked to see him go more last year, but it's also a matter of if he had gone one more inning, would he have been as effective? Would his, ERA would have been as low? Would he, I don't know. I don't have those answers, and we don't have those answers, but I think it's the right way to approach. If it's one of those things where, like, if he was a dominant strikeout pitcher and he's at 87 pitches through 6, I probably let him go the 7th, just because I know that you know third time through a lineup. Uh, if he struck you out the first few times, he still has a chance to mix it up, or at least pitch the contact, or pitch you a little bit differently. But if you're pitching the contact kind of throughout the game, it's hard to really be confident in the third time through a lineup. It's not like, oh, I feel lucky that he got through the lineup the first 2 times or 3 times or 2.5 times, whatever the case is. It's just a matter of, what kind of looks you're getting. And it's a lot more demeaning as a player when you're 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts and you go up to bat, like in terms of confidence, than if you're 0 for 2, but I hit the ball both times. I don't know. Either way, I think the way they handle Julio is fine. Would I prefer to see him go an extra inning sometimes? Yes. Is that right now? Like his first 2 starts, he's been efficient. He could have went another inning. He ended up going 6. I don't think so early on, but I do think as the season wears on, I would like to see him get into those situations and see what he can do. And obviously for the Dodgers side as well, it's one of those things where, hey, we know we may need to invest, 100, 150, 200. I don't know about 200 mil, but 200 mil for this guy after the season. And do we really want to invest that much money if we're not comfortable letting him pitch, uh, that extra inning or a third time through a lineup or a fourth time through a lineup? I think the Dodgers kind of want to see that. And, you know, I know I've seen rumblings on like social media and stuff of like, oh, the Dodgers hold him back in order to keep his contract, price down. I don't think so. The Dodgers are in this to win. And as we've seen in years past, they don't feel compelled to re-sign players if they don't feel like they're in the right, contract wise or whatever the case is. It's not like they didn't hold back Corey Seager uh, because they wanted to keep his price down in the offseason. No, they didn't do that. They didn't hold back on a lot of guys. That's not something you do. So whatever the case, Julio looks good. The cutter's looking good. Always a fun time when he's on the mound, especially if you're at the game, especially when it lines up with a Taco Tuesday at Dodger Stadium because they got the mariachi out. Even though Julio had the mariachi there for the first game, but they didn't perform during the game. They were just there for pregame. So either way, Julio's looking good. And, that price keeps going up. So I do get a little worried about what's going to happen after the season, but we'll worry about that after the season. We'll continue to enjoy the benefits and rewards of having Julio as one of our starting pitchers right now. So we're going to finish up now with Will Smith and his hot start to the season and what that means kind of for lineup construction the rest of the way. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. I don't really play games on my phone, but I've found myself playing this game on my phone. And probably because I always thought I could be an MLB GM, or not realistically, but in my head, like, oh man, I could build a team, or I could build a squad. And as I learned, at least from this game, it's not as easy as you think, but also I probably would have got fired from my first couple jobs if I was trying to be a GM. But if somebody gave me like a third chance, I definitely would be good because I'm starting to figure it out. So if you have the same thought and you want to manage your own franchise, go and download Pro Baseball GM immediately. You play through all the different aspects, leading your franchise, keeping your fans happy, building a dynasty, hiring coaches, managing finances, scouting and drafting players, managing those difficult personalities, free agency, ups and downs of a season, injuries, all that kind of stuff. And best part about it, Ultimate Baseball GM is free and you can play it offline. You don't need to be on the internet to play it. So you can basically play it wherever you want. Right now, we got a competition with the other Locked On hosts. Jeff says he's probably the most competent GM. I won't say I'm the most competent GM of all the Locked On hosts, but I'm up there. So we're competing right now. You can compete with your friends as well. Just go download the app and create a little group with them, and you guys can play. And best part of all, right now, Locked On Dodgers listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's all caps in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com. If you're on YouTube, you can scan that code right here on your screen, or you can look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. All right. Finishing up with Will Smith, who has been off to a very, very great start so far this season. Will Smith is currently hitting 421 with an OPS of 1.478. He's got 3 homers. He's got 10 RBI. He's only struck out twice in 19 at-bats. Added a couple doubles to that and then 3 walks. His on-base percentage is 478. Basically, no matter which way you slice it, Will Smith is off to a great start. I believe the RBI, he's second in the league, but he has RBI. I think he has more RBI than the Marlins do as a team, and he has more home runs than a couple of teams do. Obviously, Trace Thompson has 3 home runs and 8 RBI, but those all came in one game minus 1 RBI. Will Smith's a little bit more consistent with it. And, well, first of all, Will Smith, we've talked about him being as the best catcher or at least top, one of the best catchers, if not the best catcher in baseball. JT Realmuto continues to be like the overwhelming favorite when you talk about best catcher in baseball, at least among, fans and probably other medias. Adley Rutschman came up last year and he was given that crown maybe a little early in my opinion, but we're starting to get that buzz. And I think Will Smith gets forgotten a little bit, which is interesting because he is on the Dodgers, but Will Smith just goes about his business. He's not really out there too much. I have seen a little bit more emotion from him this year in general, which is fun. At least early on in the season, he's had emotion, but this early in the year, he's brought that emotion out, and I like to see that. It's funny because they asked Dave Roberts after the game about is Will Smith different in the dugout or in the clubhouse, personality wise, and Roberts pretty much said no, or he did say no. He's like, nah. So that's just how Will Smith is. But regardless of all that, he's playing like the best catcher in baseball currently. He's playing like an MVP candidate. And yes, it's only been 6 games, and he's only played in 5 of them. But this is all we have to go off of so far, so that's what we're going to talk about. But it does lead to a question for the Dodgers of if Will Smith keeps this up. One, how often are you playing him behind the plate? He was already, I think he led catchers last year in plate appearances or was up there at least. But he also got like a percentage of those at DH. This year, the Dodgers have a full-time DH. So on days when Austin Barnes is going to catch or when, they need a day off, are they going to put Will Smith at DH? And, JD Martinez has been okay. Hasn't been great, but he's had his moments so far. Um, he strikes out a lot, but he's come up a couple times well, but I don't think he's hitting well enough to where you need him in the lineup every single day. So I do believe that we're going to see Will Smith get some starts at DH here and there over the course of the season. And I do believe whether that's on a day that he was going to have off at catcher and they let him play DH, or whether that's just, one random day, you know what, he get a half day off, Will, but we need your bat in the lineup. Because at this point, if he's going to be hitting like this, the Dodgers need his bat in the lineup pretty much every day, especially in that 3-hole. Mookie's getting on, Freddie's getting on, Will Smith is driving him in. He needs to be in the lineup every day, plain and simple. And it's a matter of you're trying to preserve him. Catcher is a demanding position, so that's why I think getting him DH here and there does help out. But it's also the other part is Will Smith is young-ish, at least baseball wise. He can play a lot of days, and I think he'd be fine. At least early on, it's one of those where like early on you want to play a lot, and then kind of where you see where your season is going or how the like last year, if they had played on heavy early on, and then by August, September, oh, we're comfortably in the division lead. Okay, well, you can take a day off a week now, or 2 days off a week, whatever the case is. You can do that. I think we can run that here where, okay, well, you're gonna play 95% of the games, and then we'll see where we're at, reevaluate. It can bite you, obviously, if the Dodgers are in a big, tough race down the stretch and you already played him so much. But in that case, you have as a player, I would imagine you get a little extra adrenaline boost knowing that you're playing in a division race. And, the games matter a little bit differently than they did last year for them in August and September, where they were just basically not trying to get hurt. So, yeah, I Will Smith looks great. And it's one of those things where the Dodgers have Diego Cartaya, we know, in the minors. They have Dalton Rushing in the minors. Both, Cartaya, obviously, number one prospect, top prospect, top prospect, not number one, but a top prospect in all of baseball. Dalton Rushing has had some hype behind him, could take that step towards a top prospect position after this season. And the Dodgers have, a potential MVP candidate already at catcher in the organization in the major league. So it's it's one of those things where, does that open one, what are the Dodgers thinking in terms of Smith? Are you thinking extension? Are you thinking let him play the contract out? Are you thinking, if he's playing like this and he continues to play like this, it's not one where you can just say like, okay, yeah, he's here till I think he's through 2025. And then, if he signs with us, he does. If not, we have guys behind him. It's one of those where let's try to lock this guy up now. That opens up, as much as I love Diego Cartaya, Will Smith is already a known commodity in baseball. And you know what you're going to get out of him. And you know that he's an all-star or MVP quality player. MVP word is just because that's how he's playing so far this season. He's definitely all-star quality. So it's a matter of, does that open those guys up for trades? If the Brewers are trying to say, you know what, we're out of the contention. You want Corbin Burns? Okay, give us Cartaya or give us Rushing as part of a package or whatever the case is, blah, blah, blah. Does Will Smith playing this way make that a little bit more expendable? We'll see. Either way, we were not, I don't know, we were worried or concerned, maybe like mildly concerned about this lineup in terms of, last year it was Mookie, Freddie, Trey Turner, which is, Trey Turner's an all-star, one of the best shortstops in baseball, had a pretty good year last year. And then Will Smith was in the 4-hole. But, it's a little bit different when you kind of move everybody up in terms of your lineup. And, can Will Smith be that number 3 hitter? Not a lot of catchers are number 3 hitters in general, just because, like I said, catcher is a demanding position. But he's hit the ground running so far this season. I'm loving it. Loving the demeanor. I'm loving everything about it. And, let's continue to ride the Will Smith freight train. He's been doing this the most of most guys because he's always on base. So that's fun to watch. So Will Smith, good job. We'll continue to see how you progress and if you're a legitimate MVP candidate or if it's just a hot week. That goes along with a not as hot rest of the season, but very hot rest of the season. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring the best fantasy draft or fantasy baseball strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. That's where you can find us, where you find podcasts and on YouTube if you search for Locked On Dodgers. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.